Hi everyone, welcome back if you're one of my regular viewers or a subscriber of mine, and if not, then welcome to the first video that you're watching. My name's Louise Fitzgerald and I'm an independent financial advisor, and on my channel I talk about all things money, so hit the subscribe button below and you'll be notified when there's new video content out on my channel. So I'm filming this in December 2020. The world has gone to pot, especially in the UK at the moment. Where I am, we're in tier 4, which means Christmas has effectively been cancelled, which is great news. So we're having a very quiet Christmas, but I'm filming this for January and it's going to be the financial health check that you should be doing for the year 2021 to get yourself financially fit for the new year. So it's always good every time January rolls around to sit down and have a look at your finances to see what you did last year that perhaps wasn't quite so good, where you could improve, where you could cut back. So it's a really good thing to do annually just to get your affairs in order and to check you're not wasting money on things you've forgotten about, or just to really have a look at what you're spending and where you're spending it. So I'm going to give you a series of pointers just so you can have a sit down with your other half, do it on your own, however you do your finances. Just sit down, take a few hours in January, whenever that's going to be, but it is really good to get your affairs in order. So let's dive straight in. The first thing you have to do is be really honest about what your situation is. Have things changed financially that maybe have just happened in the background and you've not really taken into account for? Perhaps job loss or reduction in salary, or maybe an increase in salary. Anything that's changed over the past 12 months with regard to your income or your expenditure. Now, it's really good just to write that down in a bullet point form so you know what your income is, what your expenditure is, and just so you've got a good idea of what your finances look like. If you don't do this, you don't really know what you're dealing with, so it's really good to just get an idea of what your financial situation is like before you do anything else. As well as making a note of what your financial situation looks like, it's also really good to keep a note of where your money is, where your savings are, where your investments are, where your pensions are, and also what protection policies you have in place. I myself just draw up a spreadsheet and I keep it updated every time I open or close a policy, just so that I know that all my finances are noted down. It can be quite morbid, but that means if something happens to me, I know that there's a record of where all my money is and that something's not going to get lost or forgotten about. So it's a really good way to just keep track of what you've got and just a note of where it is and the rough value of it and any investment or policy numbers that you've got alongside it. It can be quite good in every January to just make a note of what the current value is, and then if it comes to light that actually it's gone down since last year, then it's a good time to have a look at why that is and perhaps to view the investments behind it. If you've got a particular goal for a particular investment, so a pension obviously is for retirement, but perhaps you've got other investments locked away or other savings pots locked away for certain things, so they've got certain goals in mind for them or certain things you want from them, and now's a good time to have a look and see if they're meeting those goals. And if not, it's the time to have a look and see what you need to do to change them to make sure they are on track to help you meet those goals. It may also be that he would set aside a particular saving or a particular investment for a particular thing, but actually that's no longer needed or it's been funded from other places. So actually you can review what you're going to do with that money and maybe put it somewhere a bit better for it. If it no longer needs to sit in cash, then you can perhaps put it in an investment and get some better returns potentially, because interest rates at the moment are pretty shocking. So it's definitely worth looking at your cash accounts to work out what interest rates you're getting to, because as I'm sure you're aware, they're pretty dire at the moment. And if you leave money just sitting in a cash account that's been there for quite a long time, you're probably going to be getting less than 0.5% returns at the moment. So definitely have a look at that as well. It's all well and good knowing where your money is, but also what debt do you have and how is that looking? Have you accumulated credit card debt in the past 12 months? What's your mortgage like? Have you got any other loans or any other debt that you need to consider? And it's worth just writing down what that action plan looks like to clear that debt. Now, most loans and mortgages obviously have dates they'll get cleared anyway, but do you want to accelerate that? Do you want to try and decrease that as soon as possible, or are you just quite happy to let that clear itself by the end date, as long as you make your regular monthly payments? Whatever you're happy with, just make sure that you've got an action plan to clear those debts, especially with credit cards, because they can come with high interest rates if you let the 0% roll over and then you start paying the high APRs. So it's really important that you target clearing those credit cards, or you do balance transfers to another 0% product so that you don't start paying high interest rates. At least make sure you're paying your minimum repayments each month on your credit cards, otherwise you can start to get into serious problems and it can then start to affect your credit record. Something else to be aware of is, has there been any changes in taxation or legislation since the last time you looked? Do you know if there have been any big government changes, if they've changed tax brackets or tax rates, or if they'd review certain policies or things like that? Generally, this is all well reported in the news, so you should be able to keep up to date with anything that changes. But certainly the next budget we're due in March is likely to come with some taxation changes, so do keep an eye out for that and make sure you know how it affects you and your family. It may mean you need to tweak things slightly so you can benefit from lower taxation, but always make sure you're paying the taxes that you should be, otherwise it will come back to bite you. Now, pensions are also something you should be reviewing. I know I mentioned this earlier, but it's a really good idea to get stuck into those pensions and to work out what they're doing for you. Are you paying into them? Are they giving you a good return? What are the charges on them? It's really good to keep an eye annually on those and to work out if things need to be tweaked slightly or not. You can just call up the pension provider and just ask for a summary of your pension, ask where it's invested, all those sorts of things. And if you want some fund options, some alternative funds you can invest in, just ask them and they'll be able to tell you. Otherwise, of course, you can go down the financial advisor route and you can get someone to do it for you. It's entirely up to you, whatever you're going to feel most comfortable with and whatever you've got the time for. It's also a good idea to look at your insurance policies. Have you moved house in the past 12 months, but you haven't perhaps increased your mortgage cover? Or has your employment situation changed and now your income protection is off track and it doesn't actually meet your requirements? Maybe you've had children and you want to increase your life cover because you're now aware that you've got another mouth to feed in the family. There are all things that can happen within a 12-month period that actually mean you should be reviewing your insurance, although many people actually don't do it. But it's really important to make sure your insurance policies are up to scratch and they're providing the right level of cover for you. It can also be handy to perhaps review them, even if you think they are still fit for purpose. You might be able to get a cheaper premium for the same amount of cover. So do have a look at that if you want to, or go and see a financial advisor and they'll be able to help you out. It's also good to make sure that your wills are up to date and that there haven't been any changes that mean you want to change your wills. And if you have powers of attorney, that they are still valid as well. If you don't have wills or powers of attorney, it's a good time to put that on your to-do list for 2021 because there can be great advantages of having both of those things in place. So do speak to someone if putting a will together is a priority for you, and really it should be. Solicitors can write you wills and of course you can do your own, but you need to make sure that it's written in the right way and that it's going to be sufficient. Now, it can also be a good time to sit down with your family members and discuss what's happening with your money. A lot of people don't like to talk about money within their families when really it should be something that we are all much more open about. It can be so much easier to just get things off your chest in terms of how your finances are going, but also it can mean that if someone should pass away, it's a lot easier for other people in the family to pick things up because they know what's what. Whereas in the UK, we very much keep our cards close to our chests, which is not really the way to do it, and it can mean that there can be horrendous problems if you're trying to deal with the estate of a loved one that's passed away. So it's really good to try and keep your family members in the loop, and 2021 can be a great time to say, new year, new leaf, let's get everything out in the open. Be as open as you want to be. You might not want to tell them everything, but try and keep them in the loop and keep them on track with why you're doing what you're doing. At least then they'll be able to understand what your goal is. Now, once you've done all of that, you might sort of think, actually, I need some professional help with certain things. I need a solicitor for a will. I need a financial advisor for my pension review. Whatever comes to light. It's a great time to reach out to different people and see if they can recommend someone to you. You might have a friend or a family member who can recommend you a solicitor, or you might have a colleague who can recommend you a financial advisor. But word of mouth is a great way to get someone that you trust working on your side. Now, there are plenty of places you can go and look for these people. You can start with local searches if you don't necessarily have a word of mouth recommendation that you can follow, but do your own research and make sure that you're happy with the person you're selecting, and do certainly go and speak to several solicitors or several financial advisors before you settle on one to make sure that you're going to be happy with how they operate and how they look after you. Now, if you need help with any of this at all, please let me know. I'm happy to carry out a financial health check for you just to let you know how you're doing, completely free of charge, and I'll be able to let you know if there are any areas that you could be focusing on or that you should be looking at. As always, like the video, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next month.